And welcome you to our review meeting. We are looking at the 1.1.13 release today. We have a small change in the ordering of the topics. So Marcel will start with the maximum node count for shoots. And then we continue with Dominic and with the change in the ACL extension with respect to reconciling on infrastructure changes. Next, we have Johan with an overview of GAP 30, which is about reworking the API server proxy and the shoots. Then we have Ishan with a fix for failing etcd restorations. Tim with refactoring our end-to-end tests in Gardener. And finally, Vladimir with a public Gardener information discovery config map. All right, then let's get started with Marcel.
Right, thank you. There you go. Yeah, so I'm presenting a new field, a new feature in the cloud profile for operators to specify the maximum number of nodes that a shoot can have. That feature was introduced by Tim, who implemented it as a means for an operator to set some upper limit. Currently, a shoot size is technically only limited by however big the control plane can get and the size of the networks. So what does this mean in practice? Currently, if I look at a shoot, the cluster autoscaler is configured with a flag, max nodes total, or which I guess I already have it configured in the cloud profile. Ignore this. This should say 256 because we always set this flag to a value that is calculated based on the available address space for pods and nodes. I didn't reset my demo correctly, but that is fine. What I wanted to show you is that we now have this new field in the cloud profile, which is limits. And currently there's one limit that we could set, which is the max nodes total. If that is set, this one, then we reconcile the shoot. What we should still see is now that the cluster autoscaler should restart in a moment with a flag calculated to a new value. Alongside with that limit in the cloud profile, there's now some additional validation that happens when you specify the node pools, the worker pools of your shoot. But let's briefly wait for the cluster autoscaler to restart, which should happen any day now. There we go. And now if we look at it, it has the new max nodes total of 10. And alongside this, if a limit is specified in the cloud profile, there's some additional validation happening. So if I specify multiple node pools, the sum of their maximum values can be whatever. So even though the limit would be 100, I could have a total sum of the maximum of a lot more, but it just can never be fulfilled. But if I specify a config where the sum of the where one individual minimum is above that limit, so right now I think I set 10. So if I now create one node pool that has a minimum of 11, and I try to apply this shoot, then I will get a validation error that the maximum node count of one worker pool cannot exceed the limit, because that would be a config that can never be fulfilled. And I guess now I also triggered the second validation that the total minimum node count of a node pool can also not exceed that limit. So if I only have a minimum of, let's say, 2 in this node pool and a minimum of 9 in this node pool, that's also a configuration that can never be can never exist, because the limit sum would be 11. So that would also be denied now. Yeah, one last thing to note is that this limit is not a hard limit. There are situations where the cluster could be a bit larger. For example, during node rolls, the max search does not care about this limit. It's only the cluster autoscaler. And also, if my cluster is already scaled to the limit and I now add a node pool with a minimum of 2, then these 2 nodes will get created and added to the cluster. But now the cluster autoscaler won't provision any new nodes. So these are just 2 limits or 2 limitations to keep in mind. Yep, and that's it. There's a new docs page for shoot limits. I think that's all I have to say. Are there any questions?
Nope. Okay. Thanks, Marcel, for presenting. And then over to Dominic for change in the ACL reconciliation.
All right. Where to start the slides? Okay. Get this guy over. So these are just some very small changes. I have updated the ACL extension. As you know, the ACL extension is used to block ingress traffic to your control plane. And by default, it has an allow list that takes into account your infrastructure IPs, most notably load balancers, NAT gateways. However, up until now, you would have to reconcile your shoot to get changes in those IPs into the ACL. And we now have a watch in the ACL that basically does that automatically for you without having to reconcile. The main reason for this is Azure. Azure is a little bit different than the other IaaS providers, most notably that if you deploy a new service type load balancer in your shoot, you don't get an actual load balancer. By default, you get an additional IP address on your existing load balancer. And that IP address may or may not also be used for NATing. So you get also could be in a case where this IP is used for egress also. And since we don't update the ACL by default, you could end up in a problem where your traffic is not allowed by your ingress gateway. So I would love to show you a demo, but unfortunately, we are still missing one piece of the puzzle, and that is this part here. The infrastructure currently doesn't watch the load balancer changes. We're discussing multiple options for this to get it in. It shouldn't be too hard to do, but it's just currently not there. But it is now watching here. So if there would be new egress sliders coming from the infrastructure, then the ACL would automatically pick them up and rewrite the issue envoy filters here. I think that's basically it. It works though for NAT gateway IPs. Those don't change usually, but what's still missing is the non-NAT gateway use in Azure. Namely, if you change your load balancer for any reason, we don't get the update in the egress cider status of the infrastructure. And we're currently discussing multiple options for that. Could be additional controller watching or changes in the existing ones. We don't know yet. Yeah, I think that's it. Sorry, no demo. Maybe next time when we have more changes in the infrastructure also. Thanks.
Even if there is no demo, I can testify that it works by manually patching the status field. I have verified your change, so
oh yeah,
it works
thanks.
perfectly fine.
Props go to you, Tim. Thank you for reviewing my pull request and helping me get it in. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, cool. Any questions otherwise to the topic? Nope. Then thanks, Dominic. And next one is Johan with GAP 30, reworking the API server proxy.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to give a quick overview where we are in the gap and what we achieved in the last version. For everyone that isn't involved, as Raphael already said, yeah, we're trying to rework, or we are reworking the API server proxy to drop the usage of proxy protocol. This is necessary because we want to mitigate a vulnerability or an exploit where you could send a forged proxy protocol header to an exposed endpoint. Yeah, we're trying to rework everything so that it uses HTTP connect instead of proxy protocol. And what we did the last couple of days, weeks, is that we dropped the proxy protocol, or we reconfigured the API server proxy so that it doesn't use the proxy protocol anymore, and uses the HTTP header that is already used by the reversed VPN component. I don't know if you can see it here, but this is an old change, so maybe not the best demonstration. We also added a new constraint to shoots that you can see if you reconcile a shoot with the newest version. This one. So if a gardenlet with version 1.113, reconciles your shoot cluster and reconfigures the API server proxy, there will be a constraint added to your shoot object that just says here your shoot is now using the HTTP proxy method for connecting to the control plane. And we also added a new feature gate where you can drop the now unused proxy protocol port on the Istio load balancer. So currently, if you don't have this feature gate activated, you can see there are still oh no, it already deleted it. Okay. Oh yeah, because I set up my demo wrong. Okay. Normally there would be a proxy protocol envoy filter and a port on the load balancer that is provisioned inside this namespace, where you have an 8443 port open that is used by the API server proxy. Because I already activated the feature gate in my demo, this port is now already gone, and the envoy filter was also deleted. But what we still have is the shoot local envoy filter, so the shoot specific envoy filter for the API server proxy that is also not needed anymore after you switch over to the new API server proxy configuration. So if we reconcile the shoot now with the feature gate activated, we should see that the envoy filter gets deleted. Yeah, so now it's gone. Now we basically remove the exploitability, or we remove the vulnerability, and you cannot exploit the filter with a forged proxy protocol header anymore. Of course, the feature gate also checks if every shoot that the gardenlet is responsible for has this constraint set, so that you don't get a downtime when activating this feature gate. And yeah, I think that's basically it from my part. We're still working on a couple bug fixes or a couple bugs that we encountered. But yeah, so I think that's basically it.
Good. Thanks for the overview. Any feedback from the audience? If not, then we continue with the next topic presented by Ishan about the fix for failing LCD restorations.
My screen visible?
Yeah.
Okay, so hello. This is the PR which I'm going to present today. Basically, it ensures the integrity of full snapshot before uploading it to the object store, which basically fixes this issue of failed restoration. So let me start by giving some background about the issue. So whenever a backup restore triggers a snapshot, so it reaches to the etcd with the snapshot API call. Etcd gives a snapshot data, which is a DB file. plus its append its SHA of the snapshot, and this we call it as full snapshot. And backup is to take this and move it to the further steps like compression and uploading it to the bucket. So, and while doing the restoration, it basically downloads, fetches the full snapshot and verifies this hash of which was appended by the etcd. So what we saw in couple of issues is the restoration failed because of snapshot was missing hash. So we are not sure like snapshot was missing hash or hash was corrupted or what. So but we have seen couple of issues. One is reported by our external user and one of our internal shoot when restoration failed. So typical solution is basically you go to the bucket, you delete the failed full snapshot, and you fall back to your previous full snapshot, which was taken previous day by the backup restore, and hope that won't be a corrupted one. And now you have the disadvantages because now you have more number of deltas which you need to apply for restoration. Now the restoration will take more time, and with immutability, now that won't be very straightforward. So we also open up a stream issue saying that we have seen this issue, our restoration failed and we couldn't find much. So we tried to fix it in our backup restore. So let me show you in etcd, in my etc, that basically if I show you my this is the snapshot API call, and this is where it sends data to gRPC channel, and this is basically it calculates the SHA and it sends the SHA to the gRPC channel. So what I have done is I have comment out this sending of SHA, and what I will do is I will start the etcd server. And here I am using a backup restore of previous version without this fix, and you will see that backup restore will not able to detect this corruption of full snap, whether the snapshot is not completed. And here I can have a watch on my local backup, and here you will see that backup restore has taken a full snapshot saying that I have successfully taken a full snapshot, but this snapshot is not correct. If I trigger the restoration, it will fail. So if I trigger the restoration, basically restoration we called is an initialization. So here you can see the initialization failed, the SHA was missing. So we are only getting to know about this corruption full snapshot while doing the restoration, which is not a nice thing. With immutability, it won't be a very good thing. So what we have done is basically because etcd is giving us full snapshot plus SHA. So what we have done is basically we read full snapshot data, we calculate SHA by ourselves, and we compare both of the SHA which given by etcd in the on the back of the full snapshot and what we have calculated. So we compare it. If it both matches, then we will only forward with next step, which is compression and uploading to that. If it does not matches, then we'll say we will retry, and yeah, we will retry until there will be a success. So by this, we don't have to depend on uh, until the restoration. We will be sure like, okay, our snapshot is correct. So yeah, so let me start again my etcd, which is currently not sending the hash, and this is I'm on master of backup restore, which contain this fix. And I think I have to trigger the full snapshot outside, and you will see that backup restore is able to detect that it is missing the hash. And what I can show you is it's not about missing the hash. Any kind of corruption or permutation or combination it will able to detect. So let's say it is sending the SHA, but let's say the SHA was corrupted. So I have added this line of corrupting the SHA. Let me start the etcd again. Now I have to wait for 16 seconds because that's the back off time. So I can trigger a full snapshot and you will see that backup restore is unable to detect that I was expecting this SHA and I got this. This is not the correct. And if I show you negative test case, I can show you some positive case. So what will happen is now this time, although we have to wait 16 seconds, but this time the verification will be successful and backup restore will be able to take the full snapshot successfully. And right now I have shown you only etcd with 3.4.34 because this is the version we are currently using in a production, but this problem exists in the master as well. If I take, yeah, it has taken, it is saying that full snapshot has been successfully verified. So we have open upstream issue as well, but we couldn't find much that what's going on. And so we are in the process of discussion. We find a one edge case, but still we are not sure, like, is it correct or not? So we decided to go with this enhancement in our backup restore itself. And we have done performance testing for like 7 GB of databases and all like memory footprints, because we are now reading the full snapshot data in a backup restore. So we have done memory footprints as well. Yeah. Any questions? Yes, I'm done.
I just had one question, Ishan. I should have asked you earlier, but you said that they don't know what is causing it, and you feel the retry will succeed. What happens if retry never succeeds?
So it's not about so basically what up is. Let me show you the code if you want.
No, I'm just asking, is there a possibility it'll never succeed because they don't know what is happening?
No, the thing
what
is like
is
how
what
they
is
are
the
sent,
path?
like how the thing is now when they are creating a gRPC channel, they are not considering the 32 bytes of SHA. So if SHA, the bytes become 0, then it might possible that gRPC channel will get closed and they unable to send the SHA to the snapshot API. And this is what I have opened a PR on upstream, that why not we consider this 32 bytes in this remaining bytes. There's a remaining bytes in gRPC channel. So this is what, there is only one gap, but we are not sure like this is the gap, like why either the full snapshot corrupted or not. But there is no other way. We have to hope like retry will succeed.
Okay, fine, thanks.
Yep.
Cool. Thanks, Ishan. Any other questions? Nope. Then thanks again, and over to Tim for the refactoring of the end-to-end tests.
Okay. As many of you know, the Gartner end-to-end tests are quite flaky at the moment. If you open the PR, you probably experienced some of them. We are working on this, and to contribute to this on a long term, I would say, we started this refactoring. And I will explain why and what the benefit is and how it relates to deflaking the end-to-end tests. So for now, I can show one of the end-to-end test files with the old structure. As we can see, there is a single so a single Ginkgo test spec. And this contains all the steps that we take, like creating the shoot, accessing it, and so on and so forth. And also this old end-to-end test uses this shoot creation framework, so collection of many helper functions related to end-to-end tests. Now that we are starting to refactor the end-to-end tests, they will soon all look more like this. There will be multiple its, so multiple test specs for each individual step. And the key here is that the Ginkgo container is marked as ordered, which tells Ginkgo to run all of these its sequentially instead of in a random order. And this basically makes the container our test case, like create and delete unprivileged shoot. And all of the its are now the individual test steps instead of the buys. There's also the option to mark individual test steps as interruptible by passing a spec context parameter. And this will carry the timeout configured in the step. So basically, we now have individual step timeouts, and this is respected by the eventually when passing the context. So this one will try up to 1 minute to fulfill the condition. Otherwise, it will stop. And also, we can use defer cleanup in individual its or containers so that we can ensure the test setup is cleaned up, even in case of test failure, basically. We can also take a look at this file, which has multiple test cases. So you will see there is the test create and delete hibernated shoot, both with workers and without workers. And in this case, we have this shared test function, which basically contains all the its. And it accepts a shoot context. This one carries a client and a shoot definition and so on and so forth. And this is then used by all the it functions. Also by the shared ones, which look like this. There is one it that this function generates. And yeah, by reusing this function, all create shoot steps get the same timeout, for example. And all the wait for shoot to be reconciled also use the same timeout without specifying it multiple times. Okay, so what's the benefit of this new structure? When a test fails, basically we see exactly where it fails. That's the main benefit. Previously, we just saw that this it failed, but in order to determine in which step it failed, you had to look at the extensive test outputs. If one test fails in the ordered containers version, there will be an exact failure location that points to the particular step that was executed. And this will hopefully help us in identifying and fixing test flakes much easier than before because we know exactly where stuff failed. You can also see this in one of the PRAO outputs. As you know, there is a JUnit reporting in place, and there are now a lot more test specs, basically. And this is because each individual step gets its own reporting here. So if any of those failed, it would exactly tell us right here where it failed. So this is a benefit. I can show you how this looks like if I execute one of the tests locally. As before, you can specify an existing shoot to use instead of creating a new one. And then we will see outputs for each individual step. While we are in the transition phase, this output will still be a bit noisy because the test framework registers global before each setup nodes. This is reflected here in these logs. But as you can see, all the individual steps now have their own reporting. So for example, create shoot is skipped because we specified an existing shoot. But then the shoot clients are initialized and it's successful, and so on and so forth. And also output of the individual steps, like this one, which verifies the functionality of the API server proxy, is also collected in this scope, so you know exactly where it comes from. Yeah, that's basically it. We will continue the refactoring for the remaining end-to-end tests, and then we hopefully get the full benefits out of it.
Thanks, Tim. Would you also like to spend a word on how this might influence the way how integration tests should be written? So should this ordered approach also be used there, or?
I think we can consider it there as well. From my point of view, it would make sense. But we focused on refactoring the end-to-end tests first because they are more flaky and it's even harder to look at the test outputs. I think we could benefit from this as well in the integration tests, but it will be a lot more effort to refactor them because there's way more test code with more steps and so on and so forth, and only little reuse of functionality. There's no such thing as create shoot that is executed in all the integration tests.
Dominic, Oliver, you also have questions?
Yes,
Or-
just a
okay.
quick one. Usually the specs are run in parallel, right? So how do we avoid a spec running that expects a shoot to be there before one that only sets it up? Yeah.
Yeah, this is taken care of by Ginkgo. If you mark a container as ordered, it will ensure that all the its run in the same test process. So basically, multiple ordered containers are still parallelized. So you will see up to 5 shoots or whatever we configure. But the its themselves are executed in order in the same test process.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Oliver?
Yeah, I think this also answers my question. So my question was, we limit the test processes to like 5, I guess, in Prow. And I just wanted to ask if we ensure that, yes, the tests are still run in sequence and that we don't create like 20 shoots first, and then we do the verification step of each of those shoots. But yeah, I think that's the case, right? Because of the tests, because they are running in the same process, the describe clauses here.
Yeah, I will double check on this to be 100% sure, but this is what I understood, so it should be covered.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, and there's also one from Marco in the chat. Not sure if it has already been answered. Fixing the order also has drawbacks. Could you elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, one of the drawbacks I encountered was that basically the output of a consecutive test case, like one of these, is not printed out sequentially in the test output in Prow. Because, as Oliver said, we run multiple test cases in parallel, and Ginkgo always prints out the results as soon as the test spec finishes. So we might see yeah, for example, here there is a create shoot of this force delete case, and then there is a create shoot it from the hibernated case, but you don't see then the next step in this case, which would be waiting for the shoot to be reconciled after it. So it might be the case that you have to search a little bit for the corresponding logs, but I guess this is the best we can get from Ginkgo. So far, I have not encountered other drawbacks. Do you have any in mind, Marco?
Yeah, sorry, I'm still on my commute, so connection might not be very good. I was specifically thinking about reasons like to not use ordering if you don't really need it. I mean, I see that we do need it for the E2E tests. That makes perfect sense. But now that we're thinking about integration tests or other kinds of tests, we need to be very careful about this, right? Because if you don't need the specific ordering, you will lose like the explicit randomness of Ginkgo. I mean, that's a feature, right? And it also like changes the way how usually these kind of tests should be written. Yeah, you usually initialize the values in the direct setup before the test, and you declare them like up top. And now with this ordered stuff, you have to do it in a different way, intentionally, right? But I don't think this is the pattern we should be using in general for like all of the tests, but only in places where we really, really need to rely on the order, right?
I would say this is only kind of true, but I understand what you're saying. So the ordered containers themselves still get randomized. So this is still taken care of by Ginkgo, and marking a container as ordered basically just switches the paradigm how you write test specs. Instead of one it with multiple bys, you use one ordered container with multiple its. But even if you, I would say both are equivalent in terms of the randomness, because the steps should always be executed in order, but we should not use ordered containers if there are different test cases, right? So I guess this is what you're referring to, and this is true.
Yeah. So this is not like the one hammer you want to use for like getting in all the nails, but it's a very specific tool.
Yeah. Exactly. So only the single test case basically should be marked as ordered, but nothing more than that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Thanks for the questions and the discussion. Thanks, Tim. And
sorry for taking more time than accounted for.
No problem. We have enough time today. We have one more topic presented by Vladimir about the public Gardener information discovery.
Hello, everybody. So I will quickly present this PR. It is about a config map that contains some public information, and it will be readable by everybody in the Gardener API. Basically, the config map currently contains very limited information, just restricted to the Gardener API server, and so far it contains the version of the API server, as well as the work quote identity issuer URL. Why we are doing this? Because when the work quote identity features is completed, then users have to configure the OIDC trust in their cloud provider accounts. And so far, there is no single place where we can share the issuer URL with all of the users. So we decided to go with such config map that is very well documented, and everybody will be able to read the work quote identity issuer from here. And in the future, other components are expected to contribute to this config map, and they can share some their configurations, like feature gates, for example, because not always the end users knows which Cardano-led feature gates are enabled or not, and based on these feature gates, their shoots may behave differently. And quick demo here, I have prepared a local Cardano cluster, and I have started it from the 113 release. And if you take a look in the Cardano, it is reported as such version. However, I have overwritten the API server image to be from the previous release, and I have created a service account in one of the Cardano local project that has no additional permissions. All of the permissions here are granted because it is member of the system authenticated group. And with this service account, I can, for example, try to get config maps in the project namespace, but I don't have the permissions. And I can try to get the namespace, which I also don't have the permissions, but with this service account, I can try to get the config maps in the Cardano system public namespace, which I also don't have permissions for, but I have for the Cardano info config map. And here I can see that the API server version is different from the one that the Cardano operator is. And I also can see the workload identity shore URL. So this is pretty much from my side. If you have any questions.
No questions? All right. Thanks, Vladimir. And with this, we are at the end for today. I've sent out an invitation for next week as well. There will be no new Gardener release, but we will have a special edition for the Kubernetes 1.32 support. So this is something new we want to establish whenever there is a new minor release of Kubernetes. We would like to use one slot in the review meetings to present what has been changed in Gardener and also give a short overview of the most relevant changes and features in this minor version of Kubernetes. So yeah, please check your inboxes and then we'll meet again next week. Thanks for joining. Thanks to all presenters and have a good time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye bye.